Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're unpacking a trio of concepts that you find humming beneath, well, just about everything. Frequency, idols, and rituals.
Yeah, they're really everywhere when you start looking.
So frequency, at its most basic, is just how often something repeats, right?
Exactly. And idols. Well, we'll see. They're much more than just statues. They're these focal points for admiration, packed with symbolic meaning.
And rituals. Structured actions, basically, but actions we give significance to.
Right. And our goal here in this deep dive is to explore these ideas not just on their own, but how they connect across, well, all sorts of fields.
Like physics, biology, psychology.
Even esotericism, philosophy, tech, math, ancient history, and yeah, we'll touch on how conspiracy theories weave them together too.
We're aiming to connect the dots, maybe find some surprising links for you, build a more complete picture.
Exactly, an interdisciplinary view.
Okay, let's get started with frequency. In physics, that's all about waves, isn't it?
Uh-huh. Cycles per second, measured in hertz.
And that basic rhythm dictates so much, like the color of light or how radio works.
Precisely. And it has that inverse relationship with period, you know. High frequency, like a fast beat, means a short time between beats, the period.
Right.
Think about the whole electromagnetic spectrum. You've got low frequency radio waves on one end.
Bringing you this audio, hopefully.
Yeah, right. And then way up at the other end, incredibly high frequency gamma rays. The frequency is key. It determines their energy, how they interact with stuff.
And it's not just light or radio, is it? It applies to sound waves, vibrations in solids.
Even oscillations in electrical circuits. The study of waves and their frequency is fundamental physics.
Okay, shifting gears then.
Eh.
Biology. Seems less obvious maybe, but frequency is just as key here.
Oh, absolutely. You've got bioelectrodynamics, basically the electrical and magnetic fields in living things.
And brain waves, we hear about those all the time. Delta, beta.
Right, and it's fascinating how they correlate with our mental states. Delta, that's very low frequency, like 0.5 to 4 hertz.
Deep sleep.
Deep, dreamless sleep, yeah. Then theta, maybe 4-8 hertz. More relaxation, meditation.
Alpha is calm wakefulness.
8-14 hertz. Beta, 14-38 hertz. That's when you're alert, thinking, problem solving.
And gamma's even higher.
Yeah, 38-80 hertz seems linked to higher cognitive stuff, processing complex information. It's like an orchestra, you know? Different frequencies are dominant at different times.
That's a great analogy.
And it's not just the brain. Your heart beats at a specific frequency, your heart rate.
Simple but true.
And there's even some pretty intriguing research suggesting individual cells might produce their own radio frequencies.
Wow.
Plus, the Schumann resonance of the Earth's sort of natural hum around 8 hertz. Some theories suggest it might even interact with our brain activity.
And then totally different. You mentioned allele frequency.
Yeah, in genetics, that's just how common a specific gene version is in a population, like a head count for gene variants.
Incredible range. So these internal biological rhythms are always there, but psychology looks at how external frequencies might influence us.
Exactly. That's brainwave entrainment. The idea that external stimuli like sounds or flashing lights at specific frequencies.
We can actually get our brain waves to sync up with them.
That's the theory. It's the principle behind things like binaural beats.
Where you play slightly different frequencies in each ear.
Right. And the brain perceives this third fluctuating beat, and isochronic tones, just regular pulses of a single tone.
And people market these for relaxation. Focus.
Yeah, claiming they can nudge your brain towards specific states by targeting those brainwave frequencies.
And what about subliminal messaging? That uses frequency too.
Well, that's a more controversial area, but it explores using frequencies in audio, often really low or inaudible, to try and, subtly influence subconscious thoughts.
Okay, this feels like a natural bridge into the more esoteric side of things. Frequency here takes on a whole different meaning, doesn't it?
It really does. It becomes about fundamental vibrations linked to energy, consciousness, spirituality.
The whole good vibes, bad vibes thing.
Sort of, yeah. There's this common idea that high frequencies connect to positive emotions, love, joy, while low frequencies link to negative ones like fear or anger.
And specific frequencies too, like the solfeggio ones.
Exactly. Those are specific tones believed to have healing or spiritual properties, supposedly resonating with the universe's natural harmony.
And resonance itself in this context.
It's about interaction. Energy transfer between systems vibrating at similar frequencies suggests this deeper energetic connection between things.
Okay, from subtle vibrations to something much more concrete. idols.
Right. And in ancient cultures, these were way more than just decoration.
Like in ancient Greece.
Yeah.
They were focal points for worship.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what's really captivating is the belief many had that these weren't just representations.
What do you mean?
They were seen as like earthly stand-ins for the gods, manifestations. Some cultures even believed the deity's spirit actually lived inside the idol.
So the object itself became sacred.
Precisely. Which explains the elaborate rituals surrounding them. Sacrifices, prayers, processions where they'd bathe or clothe the idol.
Like treating it as a living being.
In a way, yeah. Think of the Babylonian sacred marriage ritual or Egyptian funerary rituals with idols of Osiris helping the dead.
Which is a huge contrast to the Abrahamic religions later on, condemning idolatry.
A major shift, yeah. But that deep human need for something tangible to focus on, to project onto, that seems pretty enduring. It's like a shortcut for meaning.
Which brings us to today. We might not have temples full of statues in the same way.
But we definitely have idols, celebrities.
That intense admiration, the fandom, it really does feel like a modern form of idol worship sometimes.
It really does. Actors, musicians, athletes, they become these objects of, well, devotion. And they hugely influence fans' values, aspirations, even lifestyles.
And there's psychological impacts too, right?
Yeah.
Unrealistic expectations, body image.
For sure, it can affect mental well-being. And modern media, technology just amplifies it all, creating this sense of closeness.
Okay, and back to the esoteric view. How do idols or symbols fit in there?
They're seen less as objects of worship and more as representations of deeper things, archetypal energies, spiritual principles.
Like conduits.
Exactly. Focal points to connect with or maybe even manipulate those energies. Think sacred geometry.
Assigning deep meanings to shapes and proportions.
Right. Suggesting this underlying divine order. So an idol or a symbol becomes a tool, a way to access or channel those fundamental energies in spiritual practice.
Okay, let's move from the idols themselves to the actions around them. Rituals. Ancient societies seem absolutely steeped in them.
They really were, and rituals served so many purposes, way beyond just religious duty.
Like what?
Strengthening community bonds, for sure, marking big life transitions, birth, marriage, death, even providing ways to understand and deal with the natural world.
Can you give some examples?
Think of ritual purification baths in many cultures, or the Eleusinian mysteries in Greece, supposedly giving insights into the afterlife.
And Egyptian mummification rituals.
A huge one, all designed to ensure a successful transition for the dead. These weren't just empty routines. They hammered home core beliefs, values, built social cohesion.
And it's not just ancient history. We have rituals today, even if we don't call them that. Our routines, our habits.
It's a really interesting point. Seemingly mundane things can function like secular rituals.
Like my morning coffee.
Could be. Or a regular walk, daily meditation. They provide structure, comfort, predictability, maybe even meaning.
What makes it a ritual versus just a habit then?
Often it's about intentionality, the emotional connection you bring to it. Is it just automatic, or is there a sense of purpose or meaning attached?
And psychology has explanations for how these repetitive actions actually shape us, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Conditioning classical and operant shows how repetition and reinforcement build associations and behaviors.
And the mere exposure effect. Just seeing something repeatedly makes us like it more.
Exactly. And there's good research showing rituals can actually reduce anxiety, help us cope better with failure. Seems there's a real psychological benefit.
So these symbols, these routines, they aren't just passive parts of our lives. They actively shape how we see things. Philosophy must weigh in here.
Definitely. Philosophers often stress that symbols don't just represent reality, they help construct our understanding of it.
So,
By organizing how we perceive things, structuring our thoughts. To really get a symbol, you need to think about the intention behind it, its connection to the thing it represents.
and they pack an emotional punch, right?
Hugely. They evoke feelings, communicate complex stuff sometimes better than words. And importantly, the traits we associate with a symbol can transfer to people or things linked to it. Changes how we see them.
And our routines, our habits, philosophy sees those as shaping our character.
Very much so. They're seen as integral to our development, influencing our moral and intellectual growth over time.
And how we perceive the world through our senses.
Well, that's a huge philosophical debate, the link between senses and consciousness. But the general idea is perception isn't just passive receiving.
It's active.
Yeah, interpretive. Shaped by our learning, memory, expectations. We're constantly making sense of things based on what we already know. Even behaviorists emphasize how environmental stimuli shape our actions.
Okay, let's bring technology into this mix. It feels like a massive amplifier for all these things: frequencies, idols,
Oh,
rituals,
absolutely. A double-edged sword, maybe. Think about frequencies in communication.
radio waves, Wi-Fi, cell phones.
Exactly. Technology harnesses radio frequencies on a massive scale, encoding information, transmitting it. It's the backbone of wireless communication.
And in marketing, ad frequency.
Right. How often you see an ad. It's a deliberate strategy. Repeated exposure influences preferences, behavior, and again, those whispers about subliminal messages in media, maybe using frequency.
And then there's stuff that feels almost sci-fi.
Yeah.
Neural link devices, BCIs, brain-computer interfaces.
Yeah, that's a direct interface with the brain, using frequencies to record electrical activity, the signals from neurons.
And some can stimulate the brain too.
Some can, using precise electrical pulses at specific frequencies. The main focus now is medical, helping people with disabilities, treating neurological issues.
But the potential implications.
Are huge. Big ethical questions, right? External influence, thought control, privacy, autonomy. It's complex territory.
Shifting again, let's look at mathematics. Gives us the language for some of this, doesn't it? Patterns, cycles.
Exactly. Math provides the precise definitions. A pattern is just a repeating sequence or design.
A cycle is a pattern that repeats indefinitely.
And resonance, that's the physics thing where something vibrates much stronger when you hit its natural frequency.
Like pushing a swing at just the right time.
Perfect example. And math gives us the equations to model all this accurately.
But then, like with frequency, esotericism finds its own meanings in math too.
It does. Numbers and shapes get imbued with symbolic, sometimes mystical significance.
Numerology, assigning meanings to numbers.
Right, or Pythagoreanism, seeing numbers as the fundamental principles of everything. And sacred geometry, again, certain shapes holding sacred meaning, reflecting a divine order.
Connecting math to spiritual or energetic realms.
That's the idea. Seeing a hidden, underlying mathematical order to reality. And these ideas, interestingly, sometimes pop up in, well, less mainstream places.
Which I guess brings us to the elephant in the room. Conspiracy theories. They often seem to grab onto these very concepts, frequencies, idols, rituals.
They absolutely do. You often see this core narrative about a secret, powerful group, the shadow elite, manipulating everything behind the scenes.
Aiming for a new world order.
That's the common term, yeah. Usually involving manufactured crises, mind control, undermining national sovereignty. And it's really important to state, these theories often, disturbingly, include anti-Semitic elements.
So how do frequencies get used in these narratives?
Often portrayed as weapons or tools for control. You hear claims about things like HAARP being used for weather modification and mind control.
Right, I've heard that one.
And there's that persistent idea about music frequencies being deliberately changed, like the supposed shift from 432 hertz to 440 hertz, specifically for mind control or to suppress consciousness.
And subliminal messages via radio waves?
Another common theme, using technology for mass control below the level of awareness.
Okay, and how are idols interpreted in this framework?
Modern idols, like celebrities, are sometimes seen as tools, handpicked by the elites to shape public values, distract people from the real agenda.
And symbols, like esoteric or historical ones.
They're often interpreted as tools for mass control, too, or as secret codes used by the elite to communicate. Claims of hidden links between symbols and the elite's supposed plans are everywhere in these theories.
And rituals. How do they fit the conspiracy view?
Widespread societal things, consumerism, big political events, even how we consume media can be framed as social engineering.
Designed by the elites.
That's the claim. Rituals to keep people docile or distracted, and then you get accusations against secret societies or shadow governments engaging in, actual occult rituals for power.
Even our daily habits.
Yeah, sometimes the claim is that even our mundane habits are subtly shaped into rituals that serve elite interests, often through media and tech manipulation.
It's interesting how these theories often lean on real psychological principles to sound plausible, isn't it?
It is striking. They'll invoke established ideas about persuasion, social judgment theory, cognitive dissonance, how people process messages.
To explain how elite propaganda supposedly works.
Exactly. Or they'll use theories of social influence, conformity, obedience, suggestion, to explain how a small elite could possibly control the masses.
making it seem psychologically feasible.
Right, and they often highlight the power of repetition habituation, mere exposure, arguing that constantly seeing certain symbols or narratives reinforces the desired beliefs. It's like they co-opt psychological mechanisms to build their case,
Despite the often extraordinary claims.
which often tap into genuine aspects of human psychology, our need for patterns, explanations, our suspicion of power.
So wrapping this up, we've definitely taken a deep dive. Frequency, idols, rituals, they really are woven through so many different areas.
Absolutely. They're not isolated. Frequency underpins the physical world, biology, how we process things. Idols reveal our need for symbols and focus points. Rituals structure our lives and shape beliefs.
From physics to psychology to ancient history and modern tech.
Yeah, frequency shapes reality, idols focus desire, rituals structure life, often in ways we don't even notice. Recognizing them is maybe the first step to understanding how they affect us.
And while we acknowledge the conspiracy theories that use these elements,
It's absolutely crucial to approach those with critical thinking. Distinguishing scientific understanding from, frankly, speculation is key.
there's a difference between documented subtle influence, like in advertising or social norms,
It definitely exists.
and these grand narratives of total hidden control by some secret group, which usually lack credible evidence.
Precisely. We need that balanced view. Acknowledge the complexities of influence, but be wary of sensationalized, unsupported claims.
Ultimately, understanding these concepts, frequency, idols, rituals, really highlights how much we're surrounded by influential stimuli and symbols.
It really does. And it underscores the importance of critical thinking, individual agency, just navigating the modern world.
Which leads to a final thought, maybe for you, the listener.
Yeah, considering how pervasive all this is, the frequencies around you, the idols you might admire consciously or not, the rituals that shape your day, what overlooked frequencies, idols, or rituals might be subtly shaping your perspective, your behaviors, maybe even your beliefs without you fully realizing it.
Something to think about as you go about your day.